Hey guys, it's Sam, and this is my spoiler-free review of Fans of the Impossible Life by Kate Skelsa. This is a book that I requested from the publisher for review, so thank you so much to HarperCollins for sending this to me. Fans of the Impossible Life is a YA contemporary that follows three perspectives. First we have Mira, and she is starting at a new school. She has had a rough time, and it's being hinted at throughout the beginning of her story, but we aren't really sure exactly what happened to her, and so she's trying to adjust to a new school. Then we have Jeremy, and he is starting back at his same school, but he hasn't been there in a while because he had a kind of incident the previous year, and so he's a little bit of a social outcast, and he doesn't talk to many people, and he's very much introverted and kind of scared of the world around him. Then we have Mira's best friend, who is Sebi, and he doesn't go to basically any school. He's a kid in foster care, and he has been skipping school. Sebi ends up coming around Mira and Jeremy's school a lot because he's hanging out with Mira, and Sebi kind of pulls Jeremy into their friendship, and Jeremy and Mira and Sebi kind of become this trio, and the story takes off from there. So first off, I do want to comment on the writing. This is a multiple POV story, and the interesting thing about this is that each different perspective is written in a different person tense. So Jeremy's chapters are written in first person, Mira's chapters are written in third person, and Sebi's chapters are written in second person. I don't feel that there was any particular reason for this. Jeremy's chapters we do get the most of, but as far as a kind of way of writing, it was interesting, but I don't believe it was necessary if that appeals to you at all, this different kind of narration style. I kind of end up enjoying it because I don't see a lot of that switching of tenses and person and everything, but it was used just kind of a writing device, and I didn't see an actual point to those different changes per chapter. So beyond the writing style, let me just say that I went into this story very, very excited about it because this was touted as a bisexual love triangle, and I am all about there being more bisexuality in YA literature, and I thought it was going to be so fascinating. I was so excited for it, and I ended up being a little disappointed with this one. First off, I don't feel that it actually was a bisexual love triangle. We actually don't have any of the characters saying that they are bisexual, and the love triangle isn't really a love triangle. It's kind of that Jeremy and Sebi form a relationship that's kind of romantic and sexual at some points, but Mira isn't really involved in that. There is a weird scene later, which I will talk about a little bit because I found it really problematic, but other than that, we don't really get a love triangle. We never really hear Jeremy say that he's bisexual. We don't get any characters actually saying in canon that they are bisexual. So I found the synopsis and the way this was marketed to be a little bit misleading. One thing I will say is there is a ton of diversity within this book. There are multiple LGBTQ characters. Even outside of the trio group, there are the two characters that basically in canon are implied to be at least gay males. So there's two gay males, potentially some bisexuality in there, but again, it's never confirmed, so don't put that label on a character when that wasn't really a confirmed thing within the actual story. Then we have Mira, who is an African-American main character, and her parents are in a biracial marriage. Jeremy also has two gay dads. And then we also have Sebi, who is a foster child. So we have all different kinds of family dynamics and friendship dynamics and sexualities and races and everything. So this book is chock full of diversity, and I don't feel that it is forced in any way. Sometimes when we have books that are so full of diversity, it can feel forced and that these different diverse characters are thrown in there as token characters, but I didn't feel that way with this book at all. So I really enjoyed the first half of this book the most. I thought that the characters that were introduced were really fun characters, they were interesting, and they were just complex, and I really felt for a lot of their stories, and there's a lot of different topics that are covered within this story. There are triggers in here for suicide, depression, self-harm, some eating disorder type stuff that could be a little bit triggering, and also drug use. So if you have any of those kinds of triggers with any of those kinds of topics, then I wouldn't recommend this because this book is focused a lot on some mental health issues. So while I enjoyed the characters a lot in the first part of the book, I found the last half of the book to be pretty problematic in a lot of the things that were going on. First off, I felt that this book romanticized mental illness, and all of our three main characters are struggling with some form of mental illness, and it's not really directly addressed. None of the characters are in any kind of therapy. Therapy is kind of pushed off. There are some doctor's recommendations that are mentioned where the characters are avoiding it, and it's kind of seen as like, oh good, their parents are being so restrictive to them, da 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 da. But they're avoiding a treatment plan for something where some of these characters have histories of very severe mental illness. The second thing is I felt that the portrayal of foster care with Sebi's story was very inaccurate. And as many of you know, I am a social worker. I've been involved in the foster care system since I graduated from college, and so I understand how the foster care system works, and it just takes a little bit of research. But this book seemed like the author didn't really look into how foster care works, especially in the state where this book is written, and I actually am familiar with that state. So I knew that that's not how it would work. So you have the character that's in foster care running away or skipping school or things like that, and that just wouldn't be something that's allowed within foster care. You also have the very typical foster parent that's like, oh, they have too many kids, they're not taking care of them, they're not watching them. But these things are regulated. These things are not allowed. So although I'm sure there are some states that that does happen and that has happened in the past, I mean, the foster care regulations these days are very strict. And as somebody who knows it and can see that, it was very off-putting to see this character who's in foster care, who's kind of not being taken care of, and I didn't feel it was very accurate at all. While that might be some people's story, and while that I'm sure used to happen a lot and probably still does happen in some states, in the state that we were talking about, that wouldn't have happened, and it's just, again, very damaging, and it just sheds a bad light on foster care when foster care isn't always about these bad situations, and foster care can be very helpful to a lot of people. So again, seeing a character in a situation in foster care that was not helping them and where they were really spiraling out of control was just not really an accurate portrayal of the situation in that state. Then we have some lack of consent issues going on as far as sexual activity. Between the two male characters, we have a lot of drinking and lack of consent and no one really asking before they're doing something, and there's a particular scene later on in the story that's kind of involving all three characters, and I'm not going to talk too much about it because, as I said, it is later on in the story, but there's a lot of lack of consent there. There are characters that are drinking under the influence, things aren't being asked, things are just being done, and it's just really rubbed me the wrong way, and it implied that it was kind of romantic and that they're all, you know, in this together. It was not a good scene, and it was not talking about anything being safe, anything being consensual, anything being loving, or anything like that. It was this very kind of creepy, non-consensual thing going on within that scene that really rubbed me the wrong way. There's also a relationship with a teacher where he is the very stereotypical, you know, teacher that helps people out and they're on like a first name basis and all the stuff, but throughout the story he went from being that kind of character to being a character who is crossing a lot of boundaries. The kids go to his house, he ends up touching them, and I actually felt like it was going to go in a way of like a teacher crossing a line sexually. That's the vibe that I was getting. That didn't end up happening, so I don't want to put any trigger warnings out for that. That did not end up happening, but I got that feeling, and it was definitely a relationship that it was kind of shown as being okay, and there was a lot of power dynamics and stuff going on, and teacher-student friendships that are that deep and on that level are just not okay. It's a power dynamic thing, and it's just not healthy or okay, and the book never said anything about it being not okay. It actually almost encouraged that kind of relationship, and I just did not end up enjoying that at all. And lastly, we have the theme of codependent relationships. So throughout the story, we have these three main characters, as well as some side characters, really displaying some codependency within romantic relationships and friendships, and it's really very damaging. So we have a side character who is following around an ex-girlfriend and kind of borderline stalking them, and it's just not really consensual again or healthy in any way. And then we have the three main characters getting so attached to one another that they feel they can't live without the other ones, even if it's not in a romantic sense, even in a friendship sense. There's this feeling of them spiraling out of control. There's a line here somewhere saying that one of the characters, when the other one leaves, feels like they can't breathe, and it's just not good, even for a friendship in a teenage story, in a YA novel, so kind of romanticizing this beautiful friendship and this codependent and unhealthy relationship and friendship in a group of people who have mental health issues. It's just very codependent, very unhealthy, and it's never corrected in any way throughout the story or even at the end. Even at the end, we have the idea that basically these characters, that relationship is very much romanticized and the codependency is okay, and I just don't feel that that level of codependency is at all okay. So because of all of these problems, I ended up feeling like the characters overall didn't grow throughout the story. I ended up enjoying the characters throughout the story, but I didn't enjoy a lot of their actions. I didn't enjoy a lot of the idealizing of things like mental health and codependent relationships and relationships with really bad power dynamics. So ultimately, I didn't feel like the characters grew at all throughout the story. Where they are at the beginning is kind of pretty much where they are at the end, if not worse. And I really wanted to see some kind of resolution with that, especially with their mental health issues. Their mental health issues aren't really addressed. They are brought up and they are shown, but we never really get them in any kind of recovery or really addressed. It's kind of just like, oh, we have these mental health issues and we're so broken and so damaged, and we're this group of damaged friends, and there's really no resolution to it, and I was really hoping that we would get that, and we really don't, and at the end we kind of have like a vague open ending, and there's just really no resolution to that. And for a story that is so heavily about mental health and relationships, I was hoping that we would get something more of a resolution with this story. So overall, because of the problems that I had, but also because there are parts of the story that I really did enjoy, I ended up giving Fans of the Impossible Life 2.5 out of 5 stars. So comment down below, let me know if you have read Fans of the Impossible Life and what you thought of it, and also comment and let me know if you have any canon bisexual characters that you have in books, especially main characters. I went into the story hoping for a canon bisexual character and didn't really get that. So if you have any recommendations for me, please leave them down below. So thank you all for watching, and I'll see all of you guys soon. Bye!